live? I think we're cutting live
Adelaide.
now.
Hello, Candles for Assange.
Hello.
I'm sorry
Hello,
I got to
Adelaide.
Pardon?
Hello, Adelaide. We're just going live now to you now. So I just want to say hello because I think we're just coming back to the live stream on Action for Assange. And I just want to introduce Adelaide, who are just showing us their candle display. So can you show us it again?
I'm sorry, I can't hear most of what you're saying. Let me go back to her. Can't hear you,
Got your
honey.
video. Hello. So can you show us again, because we're now going live on Action for Assange, and I'm just we've got Adelaide here and Claire Smith. Go.
Hello.
Hello. Go. Yeah, we can see you.
Hi, this is Claire. We're in Adelaide, and we've had a really good event tonight with lots of candles and lots of posters. It's been awesome. A lot of people turned out. We're really happy. And this is our candle display over here. That spells out happy birthday, Julian. No, we forgot the Julian. So there's Ozzy taking a photo of the candles. Say hello to Candles for Assange, Ozzy.
Hello. Wonderful. Wonderful.
And yeah, and this is Jody and Steph. Hi.
Hi, Jody.
Hello, Alex.
How are you all? Well done, everybody. Glad you had such a good time.
We can't hear you, but anyway, we're signing off now.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Free Julian Assange. Woo!
Free Julian Assange, Adelaide. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. All right, I'm not quite sure why she couldn't hear us our end, but that was wonderful. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, so we've got that was Adelaide, right? Who just unexpectedly called in, and so we thought we'd just quickly pop live to them. We're waiting for Sydney to get in touch, or hopefully playing, if we ever found any videos for Sydney on Facebook, which was where we were looking before, if you remember, Josh. So Josh here, Sleepy Josh from Action for Assange has been running the stream so far, and I've just got back from the Wellington protests. We've had a little bit of videos coming in from Auckland, and I've been sending them through to Josh. I'm not quite sure what order we're going to be playing them in, but I'm really hoping that Larissa is going to join us soon from Canberra, and with any luck we'll hear from Sydney. I'm going to check my phone. In the meantime, Josh, maybe you could play something that is lined up next. Tell us what's coming up. Okay. Okay. All right then. Well, so should I go through the list of cities while you do that, or we'll have to cut to be able to do that? Okay, I'll do that then. All right then. Well, I'm not sure if anyone's checked out Candles for Assange on Twitter, but I have put up a crazy program there and also on Facebook, Candles for Assange. It's quite tricky to look at, but basically it shows you whatever time zone you're in, what time all the events are going on. And we're hoping to cut live, particularly to London in the morning for me, because it's obviously late evening now here in New Zealand. We've done all our protests. After our protests, actually, we went to a talk by Nikki Hager, who is New Zealand's finest investigative journalist, you could argue. He exposed John Key, our former Prime Minister, with a book called Dirty Money. And what happened to him is that the police illegally searched and seized his journalistic materials, and what we ended up with is that the police had to pay Nikki Hager an incredible amount of money in compensation because they were found guilty. Obviously, he was a journalist. So we went to talk by him about Five Eyes and about New Zealand's involvement in Five Eyes, which was very interesting. So we've crammed in quite a lot today. And we've got some video of Nikki Hager, which we will play later, depending on what's coming up. I would like to check back in with a few people, but in the meantime, I'm going to go through the schedule that's in Candles for Assange on Twitter or Facebook group Candles for Assange, and that's 4 with a number. Okay, so in my thread, pinned thread to my profile, you can find out all the information, hopefully, that you need to know. If you can't find information about the city that you see listed on the map on the video or anything else that you've seen, it's probably because they're doing a solo protest of some kind, and we're just going to get photos and video from them, or maybe be able to call into them later. I do have a number of them in France and Vienna, places like that, that we will get a little bit of information, possibly a call in to some smaller protests. But the big one is going to be tomorrow morning, London Belmarsh, which is probably going to be around 5 p.m. British time. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the schedule that I did at the very end of a very long tweet of all the cities, and I think it's almost 50 now, at least 50 events, because some places are having more than one event. And if you go to the very end of that very long schedule, you'll find an image there with all the time zones covered. So if you go horizontally, it's New Zealand, Sydney, Adelaide, Perth, Vienna, London, Rio, Toronto, Mexico, Denver, San Fran. So wherever you are, you should be able to figure out what hour it is going to be on and check it out on Action for Assange. So right now, we're expected to hear from Canberra and Sydney. And we've just heard from Adelaide. We have got Perth going on at the moment. London will start in a couple of hours, and we have a city in Germany, Flensburg, going at midday, and they're in Holmnitz, at midday. And then we have Vienna coming in at 5 o'clock their time, and they're in the Menschenrechte in Vienna. I'm not sure if I pronounced that very well. We have got Hamburg coming in there at 3 o'clock, Stadtfortplatz and Flaggenplatz. And we have got Frankfurt, Ulm, Cologne, all coming in at the same time, pretty much. We've got Saint-Nazaire now added from France, and I believe they are working on something about 4 o'clock. We have Munich, which is going to be a 6 o'clock German time. And then I would like to cut live. That will be when Belmarsh will be doing their special event, and that's when the official vigil starts. The vigil is actually going all day, but there's a main event happening at 5 p.m. at Belmarsh Prison, and that will be hopefully where we'll be going live to Dave Simpson there and Ali, who we were just speaking to earlier. We might show some of that if we can. And then after Belmarsh, we've got Rome at the US Embassy, and Rome time, that's 7 o'clock. We've got Chicago. I believe Chicago would be midday. We have Denver, Rio, Mexico doing a virtual presentation from 24H, the group there called Assange Libra on Twitter. We have Natal, who are doing in Brazil. They're going to be doing the most beautiful Buddhist ceremony for Julian for his birthday. And I'm in contact with them, and I'm really hoping they'll take a call, but otherwise we'll just get the video from them afterwards. And then we have San Fran live with Action for Assange with Steve. I'm hoping is going to be down there. Is that right, Josh? Wonderful. So San Fran, it's midday San Francisco time, and so if you're in DC, if you just scroll across that list of crazy numbers, you'll find that that's about 3 o'clock DC time. Is that right, Josh? I think I got that right. Okay. Okay, and then we've got an online show from Rio, from Fabiano Lima, or Fabiana Anonymous, and Tulsa in Oklahoma, in America, at the same time, are going to be doing a walk. And sometime at the end of that 3-hour walk, they're going to show us hopefully some balloons that they're letting off, Free Assange yellow balloons. And I'm hoping that we'll see some more yellow ribbons around trees in different cities all around the world. We've got Concord then after that. Now, Concord time, I believe it's 5:30 Concord time at Concord State House. And then we have Toronto doing a live stream with 1 hour with Peter Blythefield, and Sherry Drums is going to be helping me host that, co-host that. She's done songs for Julian, and lots of drumming for Julian, and lots of music that I'm hoping I'm going to work with her soon on something musical, violin in her. And then we have Mexico coming in again with Mexico Con Julian. And that's, I think with you guys, Action for Assange, you'll still be doing this, because I've got Washington DC noted there, because I know you're going to be going in with Sam Fran at midday their time, 3 o'clock yours, but I also had you down for doing something in the evening. Mexico, cool. 9 p.m. Brilliant. All right. And I think that's right on my schedule. And then last but not least, we've got Toronto, 10 o'clock vigil, because he's working all day and he's literally just going to go there. Steve McMaster, who is an absolute demon on posting on Julian, both on Facebook and Twitter. And when you're having an argument with someone, oh gosh, he's great. He comes in and backs you up and helps you and gives you facts to help to lay on them. And so, yeah, Steve is hopefully doing Toronto at the US Embassy at 10 p.m. I don't know, we might have candles. Last year he sung us Happy Birthday, Stevie Wonder style, and it was so beautiful. It's maybe, Josh, we could tie up on Alex Hill's channel. There is a really nice candles montage with 62 cities from last year. We could show that again at some point too. I think that's everything. I've probably forgotten something. There's a lot of solo ones there that I haven't mentioned, but they're all listed on the thread. So I just went through the ones that have actually got addresses that we know where they are, or they're online with us, hopefully. Okay. So, all right. Oh, yeah. Okay, sweet.
said so often that we stop hearing it, despite the fact that it's obviously untrue. The US and the UK are hugely militarised countries. I recommend to you, if you haven't done this, get a map of the United States, which has got all the military bases on it. Look at the statistics of their spending. It is quite astonishing. It's more like science fiction than the world that we think we live in. They're nuclear weapon powers. They meddle in destabilise countries around the world. They start wars that have caused immense suffering and displaced millions of refugees. With those refugees causing, apart from their own suffering, huge problems and destabilisation in Europe, in North America, and in the Middle East. They undermine and spy on the United Nations. They impose illegal sanctions and blockades on independent countries. And the list goes on. We suddenly remember this. We wake up from our slumbers to the idea that we're like-minded, that we have the same interests, and we're the same kind of countries. But we're still repeatedly told that they're natural partners of New Zealand. And listening to Richard, I just want to digress. This reminds me kind of a parallel story in New Zealand and other countries, which is about the history of the Communist Party. Bear with me. Might not seem obvious. But there was, through our history in New Zealand, if you look at the history of the fine people who chose to belong to the Communist Party and believe in the Soviet Union and think that the Soviet Union would be, was the role model for a great and better future. They had reasonable grounds for that belief at the beginning. And then gradually, I'm thinking back to the history I've seen of the Wellington Communist Party, gradually there was a disillusionment came on. It might have been Stalin and the ugliness of those years, and some of them were dropped out, or the invasion of Hungary, and some people dropped out. And so it marched on down through the years until eventually it was hard to find anybody, even in the socialist group, who wanted to say they thought the Soviet Union was a good idea. And that's a natural learning process. Now let's look at the equivalent for people who are defenders of the Anglo-Saxon alliance. When they were formed, when these alliances were formed in the late 40s and early 50s, soon after the Second World War, it seemed kind of logical to lots of, maybe not highly politicised and critical thinkers, but, they helped us win the war, they saved us from the Japanese, it all kind of made sense. And then the country evidence started to pile on, is what my point of my little analogy is. It was the Korean War and the Vietnam War, it was the hideous operations of the CIA to stabilise the democratic or left-wing countries around the world. It was about the Cold War itself, which wasn't a war of equals, and all the damage that caused, and all the proxy wars, and all the other things I mentioned, and the nuclear arms race. And during those years, the New Zealand public was doing what those communists had done during the Stalin years and things. They were peeling off. They were disappearing. They didn't think this was a great idea. And so how come our kind of pure party liners of the intelligence agencies are still telling us that our natural perfect allies are the Anglo-Saxon countries? I'm going to ask you. I find it really fascinating. Haven't they been watching the same things all these years? There's one final argument, the third argument, which is heard. And this argument of the three of them, alas, probably has some truth to it. But what a crazy argument it is. It's like giving advice to someone who's married to an abuser or a mafia boss, saying, I'm not sure you can really afford to leave here. What kind of a basis for the relationship is this? And as Richard said, in fact, we just have to blink our eyes a few times and look at the world, and there are countries who are far more natural allies of New Zealand. There are far more common interests and common outlooks and similar size and similar aspirations to New Zealand. And then the ones that believe in human rights and act like they believe in human rights and the rest of it, who are the natural allies of New Zealand. But us, our accidental stowaways on the Five Eyes ship back in the quality will relax. They've changed more slowly than the rest of the country because they're secret and embedded in the old alliances. So while the rest of the country has been changing, they haven't changed as fast. And so what I'm saying is, in effect, New Zealand is part way through a process of decolonisation. We're on the way, but we're not there yet. Here we go.
Right, sorry about that. I was muted. I'm going to have to get used to that. We have just had Larice turn up on the live stream, who is in Canberra. But before we get chatting to her to find out what she's been doing today to mark Julian's birthday, we are going to cut to Facebook right now, where hopefully we will find people for Assange who are in Sydney. They've had a protest at 5 p.m. at the town hall. They've been lighting candles. There's several in the same Facebook group that are music being played and happy birthday being played, Stevie Wonder. And last year they did a wonderful ceremony and they had a cappella version of Stevie Wonder done by Ian Rose's sister, whose name escapes me for the moment. But we're going to cut back right now to People for Assange, almost live, about 7 minutes ago, live on Facebook.
Could not have a day. I just never understood how a man who died for good.
Okay. Oh, hello there. Welcome back. So we are just cautious that we don't play too much music, especially if it's too mainstream music. So we've got to be a bit careful and just play, bands and stuff playing. But we were on the Facebook Live for People for Assange from their Sydney protest just from a few minutes ago. They've got candles set up, and there's another link that I think we should have a go at playing, which is candles being lit on the steps of the town hall. Really great. So, but also we have here Larice. Larice, are you unmuted at the moment?
I believe so.
Yay! Oh, welcome, Larice. So we have Larice from Canberra, and we haven't been able to talk to her yet because we've been quiet here. But it's absolutely great to see you. And I've seen already. We sent a short video to Josh of you, of a yellow ribbon sort of sped up around the tree. So that was great to see. So thank you for that. We've just had somebody else join, but you go.
Okay, there's a bit of echo coming back, but I'll just keep an eye.
turn down your volume a little bit.
Okay.
Have you got headphones, Louise?
Oh, look, there's somewhere else. It's too late to get there. Okay, is that okay? Oh, look, I'll ignore that. Okay, anyway, look,
Mute your side, Alex. That should help. All right, you're good.
okay. You ready? Are you ready for me, Alex?
Sorry, yes. I'm just trying to mute so that I don't make your echo because you can hear me talking, so I'm going to have to turn myself off. You could go tell us what you've been up to today, and maybe Josh will be able to play the video of the yellow ribbon soon.
Or you can come back to me. I can go and get headphones if you like.
Yeah, it's brutal echo. Let unmute.
Oh, hello. So, Louise, thank you for that. If you could just mute now, there's still an echo from someone, so maybe we've still. Did someone just
I can
phone
mute
us here from Sydney? Or someone, I can't see who's just joined me. Yeah, Candles for Assange, I've got you as.
I think it's percent just join.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we could say, oh, is that you? Yvonne.
Evie, sorry,
Evie.
it's the first time on here. It's
The woman
me.
with many
I'm
names.
Echo. I'm sorry, it's me.
No problem. How about you tell us about what you've been preparing for Vienna today?
Well, we've got balloons and yellow ribbons to tie around the trees, and yeah, we're gonna have a birthday cake, and we're joining Save X for human rights, and they're actually having a protest for deportation, that the Afghan people are getting deported from here. But they've kindly allowed us to join. Because of Corona, it's been difficult to get a permit. People have kind of dropped out of the group or are in town and stuff. So yeah, so we're going to be joining them. So we'll be speaking at some stage, hopefully. So I have to think about.
You're going to have to say something. You're going to speak about free press this time. You have to mention free press, remember?
I forget it this time.
Apparently, Evie got told she has to remember the free press on World Press Freedom Day. How could she give a speech and not mention it? So, do you feel that they give you permission because of being Julian Assange supporters?
No. So I'm Irish, so I can't get one anyway. That's just because you have to be Austrian. And so the people who are in our group, they're kind of reluctant because of the COVID-19 specifications. In case anything went wrong, they weren't willing to take, because we get fined like 600 euro or something, so they weren't willing to take the chance in case anything went wrong. But I have to say, up until now, we've been like, we're back on the street, but this Save X is a group of people. They've been always with us from the very beginning from Candles, so they were always there. Georg was always with us, and they do a lot of work for human rights, and it's good, you know. And I think the two things together, I think it's okay, you know. So yeah.
So what time is it there,
I'll have
Evie?
to join it up somehow, you know.
What time is it there, Evie?
Sorry?
What time is it there?
Now it's what time? 10:24. So we've got a couple of hours. We'll be setting up at 4:30. Let's see, because last time we were on Wednesday there, and they told us to get the sign down because we tied it onto a light thing that belonged to the museum, and they never get that down. You know, that's like ridiculous. Yeah. But apart from that, like,
did you see we managed to get a big 4-meter sign on both sides of the motorway?
Yeah, that was cool. That was really good. Was that risky to do then? Did you get into trouble for that? Or?
We thought the police were going to come and take us, well, ask us to take it down. We were going to try and delay them. We thought it would be about half an hour, but 2 hours solid.
Really?
So,
Wow.
George, I've got a really big echo. Evie, have you got any headphones? Because we had the same problem with the
No, I
hammer.
can't even plug headphones in here. There's just I haven't even got a thing to plug them in. It's going to be a problem. I thought that on the street. That's why I came out.
Try to turn down your volume
Okay.
slightly.
That's why I came out in the garden, because I thought I'll try if you can hear me in the garden, because this is it. This is all I have. And my
Right.
computer is locked. I can't get into my computer.
So, what is the plan today? How are you going to celebrate Julian's birthday in Vienna?
Pardon?
How are you going to celebrate Julian's birthday in
We're
Vienna?
all coming together, and we've got the cake and stuff. And I've also got a letter that we're going to send Julian that people have been signing, and we printed out some photos. Oh, I can't show it here. Where? We printed out some photos of the actions that we've been doing, and so it's going to be like a birthday card to send it to him. So, and we'll have speeches. So from hopefully Goran will say something as well, another member of us, and hopefully try and inform people about what's going on, basically, and reach as many people as possible. We also have a petition from Amnesty International, so we can get people maybe to sign that and send that off to them. So.
Have you seen Mexico? The Mexico con Julian have managed, and actually Commander X's lawyer, cyber lawyer, who's Stephanie Valerio. She has been dealing with Amnesty in Mexico, and they're doing a online campaign for Julian now.
They
It's
did
great.
over here too, also in Austria. They have got behind it. One of the, I think the trial, the beginning of the trial, we were actually doing a Candles for Assange vigil on that day, and they actually came and joined us here. So, and yeah, you could send off over here to get a free Julian Assange pack. They were sending out, but funny, we all expected to get a nice poster or something, but but there is the petition, so I think we could get people to sign that at least, and that's good, you know. So
Yeah,
yeah,
great. I mean, it's a bit of a shame that Amnesty only got involved 2 days before the trial,
yeah,
in
yeah,
earnest.
yeah,
But I mean, if they'd started gearing up now for September, maybe we could.
yeah, yeah. Hopefully, yeah, it'll have some movement and have some. But I think, like, I do feel like it's changing. I feel like the spirit or the mood of the thing is changing and moving in a more positive direction. I think we're gathering more steam, kind of thing.
Yeah,
There's a
I
lot of
think
interest.
nothing showed that more than the latest indictments, based on hacks. It's like scrabbling for anything they can to pin on him. And I think now we're going to have to start thinking about talking about Sydney Morning Herald in the same breath as Guardian, you know, in terms of like one of the worst outlets now. After this story, I don't know if you've seen it, but they're basically labeling Julian a hacker now. Julian's not a journalist, he's a hacker, some, you know, crazy headline. And it just reminds me of that speech I did last year at World Press Freedom Day, where, you know, they said, oh, well, Luke Harding said he's not a journalist. You know, it's absolutely disgusting the way they're going. But yeah, I think you're right. There's definitely a positive move
I think it is more
everywhere.
push, and I don't know. I mean, it's just another thing. Like when that came out, I didn't know everything, so it's like another thing to learn. I don't know. I can't see that. Yeah, another thing to learn about for me, and another thing to have to explain to people on the street. It's like really kind of they did it for the media, and that shows as well. The defense didn't get the information. They didn't get the indictment, did they? They didn't get the papers. Apparently, they said they found out through the press. It's just again a media spin to label him a hacker, which is like obvious, and it's disgusting, really. But I do think maybe it's just that bit too much, and hopefully, yeah, push it more on our side. Actually, at the end of the day. even though it's like, oh my God, he's this and that. It's getting a bit ridiculous and out of hand at this stage. And the witnesses, I mean, it's disgusting that they put those people up, really, for that poor man, you know.
Another birthday.
Yeah. Well,
Okay. Well, I don't know if you know Larice, but she's done those beautiful candles last year on the Parliament that said "Free Julian." Larice, are you there? Can you unmute yourself?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, wonderful.
And I've got my earphones on.
All right, Evie, can I ask you to mute so that I can't hear myself repeating? That's all right.
Blue dot here. I'll try
And if you can find headphones, that would be amazing.
On you. Wait now.
I can mute her.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So back to you, Larice, and we just had Evie there from Vienna. You guys can talk as well if you've got questions for each other, because you know, different cities approaching the same problem. But yeah, what would you like to tell us about what you've been doing today, Larice?
Well, for those who don't know, because we've got international people on tonight, of course, I'm in Canberra, which is the capital of Australia, where everything should be happening, and not much is happening, except that we went out and tied 160 yellow ribbons to trees. So the old song says, if you want me home, tie 100. Well, we went overboard and did 160. It just in our local area, a thoroughfare that goes into the city here. Thousands of people going by. We did some on the bridge. We did a sign on the bridge and some ribbons and lots on trees. So people will bicycle and walk and drive by and see Free Assange. So happy birthday,
Brilliant.
Assange.
That's such a good birthday present for Julie and Larice. That's absolutely amazing.
Yep.
And I don't know if many people know, but the reason I've got a twisted accent is that I was born in London and I grew up in Canberra. So I want you to tell me, what street did you do that on? What have you been? Whereabouts did you? What name of road?
Well, I'm in O'Connor. Do you remember where O'Connor is?
Yeah.
1990. It's less than 2 k's into the city. So we put them on the bike path that leads from North Canberra into the city, and thousands of people use that bike path. Bicycling around to work's a big thing in Canberra. So we put them on the bike path between MacArthur Avenue and Turner School, David Street, if you know where that is.
Beautiful. So
Yep.
You got more photos? I've seen the one that you've sent me, the little micro video. But have you got some more that we can share later with Josh? And if you send some to him, he can on the chat. You can send him some. Or no, actually, Josh, what's the best way for Larice to send you photos? Maybe you guys can connect. Yeah. So, do you know? We don't want to say that live. Oh, you did? Okay, so I bought you at protonmail.com, ABORTU. And then you can send any images and we can get some footage of that up, because we've done the same in Wellington, in Cuba Mall. We've left all the ribbons there. And we've only managed really one tree because it's in the middle of the mall, but we did put them all over the posts everywhere. So, so Larice, and tell us a little bit about last year. You did all those candles. Like, how many?
We didn't even count them, but it was massive because each letter was about a metre and a half, no, more like 2 metres long. So we went up on before dark, and it got dark quicker than we thought. And it's winter, of course, so it's freezing in Canberra. And we had a lot of trouble with the candles kept going out, even though they were inside plastic cups, with sand in the bottom. I thought, I don't think we'll do that this year. We're all another year older, and it was bitterly cold up there. It's bitterly cold here now. I'm sitting here with the heater on and a couple of blankies on my knee. So I don't think anyone would be wanting to be out on Parliament House tonight in particular.
No.
But, we had a brilliant...
We had candles the very first time, which was Julian's 47th birthday. We had, just like that, we had plastic cups and we nailed them into the grass, and we put the tea lights in there and let them in there. And that worked, but it took us ages. And I remember we were trying to go through the free bit, free Assange, and it just kept on going out, kept going. We thought we weren't going to do it. And then we got the money shot at the end, which was great. But the next time we did Candles for Assange with all the other 62 cities, we did the Candles for Assange at the US Embassy, and Nikki Hager gave us those little LED ones. You just switch. He gave us a whole bunch of those, and we got a few more so that we could do quite a lot of writing. The only thing is they take forever to switch on, and they kind of break. They're plastic, you know. It's all plastic, isn't it?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Wonderful, Laurie. Thank you so much. Did you want to take us through anything else that you been working on in Canberra? Or we were hoping to have David McBride on, but I never heard back from him again, and I don't know if anyone. And I see Kathy has arrived here. We've got Tom Peters as well in Wellington, who's been protesting with me earlier today on Cuban Wall, who's just turned up on the stream.
Yeah.
So,
I'll say good night.
All right.
See ya.
Brilliant, Laurie. Thank you so much for everything you do.
You're welcome.
You're a
See
great
ya.
friend. Thank you. All right. So Tom Peters, we have here from Socialist Equality Group in New Zealand, who are hoping to form a party, I believe, right? Eventually. But at the moment, the Socialist Equality Group, and for years since I've ever been doing them, certainly they've been turning up and supporting us and putting press releases out, and World Socialist website writer as well. So, you know, pretty talented guests we have here. And I also have Kathy Vogan, who I see has just joined us. And you're in Sydney, aren't you, Kathy?
I'm in Sydney, yes.
Yeah, awesome.
And
So
celebrating Julian Assange's birthday, if you could call it that.
No.
Call it celebration, I mean.
So I don't know if you know Tom Peters. Have you met him before? Tom, is your microphone working?
Hi, yes. Hi, thank you, Alex, for having me on this discussion. Yeah, I mean, that's right. We have been, ever since, well, for several years, joining your protests and organising our own events, and that's been as part of the International Committee of the Fourth International, which includes the Socialist Equality Party in Australia. They have had numerous protests in Melbourne and Sydney and Brisbane, and I think Alice Springs as well. So, and we're also affiliated with the Socialist Equality Party in Britain, that has been quite active there as well in this global campaign. So it's you know, it's been a really pleasure to work with Alex and all of the people involved in Free Assange New Zealand, and I think you know, there's clearly a growing movement internationally, I think, and that was certainly reflected in the people that we saw today in Wellington, and the commitment of those people, I think, is really impressive. Everyone there feels very strongly about defending Assange, and also, you know, about Chelsea Manning as well, and they are, you know, yeah, very strongly committed. So I think this is just an extremely vital movement. As I mean, I don't need to convince anyone here of that, but it's one that I think has got to continue to grow, and because of what's at stake, which is the entire future of you know, a free press, freedom of speech. I see today, in fact, the World Socialist website has an article about this ABC journalist in Australia, Dan Oakes, who's now being threatened with prosecution because of the stories that he has done about Australian special forces killing people in Afghanistan. And what we make the point in that article that this is the Assange precedent that we're seeing here now being applied much more broadly. And of course, it follows the raids on the ABC offices last year, and also Annika Smethurst, the News Corp journalist in Australia as well. And so, as I said today in my short speech at this vigil, the issues, as we all know, the issues that go way beyond just one person, Julian Assange, and that's why I think, from our perspective as socialists, it's not a single issue campaign. It's about every issue, every major issue that needs to be publicized, and that workers, young people need to know about.
Thank you. Well, it's interesting because you've almost done a segue for me and Kathy Vogan, because we've now got David McBride who's just joined the stream. Hello, David.
Hello. It's
nice
good timing.
To meet you.
Yeah, thank you so much for putting this on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I've just come back myself from the New Zealand protests, and I don't know, Kathy, if you made it to the Sydney ones, but we've just seen some stuff live from people for Assange from this town hall with candles and music. Yeah, so what have you been doing to mark birthday, and would you like to talk to David McBride, because I think you're much more highly qualified than I am to ask the right questions, if you like.
Yeah, no, well, it's
Kathy,
pretty...
are you sorry? Oh, Kathy's not hearing me at the moment. So, Dave, why don't you tell us about whistleblowing in Australia, and also I guess around Julian Assange, because it's his birthday. We need to talk about how it relates to the whole world's picture, I suppose.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's an exciting day to be a whistleblower in Australia, and this the fact that Dan Oakes might be charged is really interesting, and I've been glued to Twitter all day. I saw it last night by mistake, even though my kids think I spend too much time on Twitter. Since then, I've just been, wow, this is going to be quite big. And it opens up a lot of possibilities, because Christian Porter's going to have to, our Attorney General is going to have to come out and say, I am going to charge Oakes, or I'm not. And even if he says I'm not, he'll probably have to justify why he's not going to. And that all helps Assange, because to get in the public view, where people have to specify what's in the public interest and what isn't and why, is a really positive thing, because it's obviously, there's no logical reason that Assange is treated different from Oakes. And the main reason, the cynical reason, is because ABC journalists have a certain amount of power in Australia and Julian Assange doesn't. Well, but one of the great things is I can feel the momentum building. It's to a certain extent is charged, and I hope the ABC have to defend it, and they get some really good lawyers in, and they really argue the case hard, and they say how can reporting war crimes be a crime, and then the lessons that come out of that will be able to be directly used for Assange's case. And you'd say, well, what's the difference? And it's very exciting, and to have the same principles in Julian's case extended to people a long way away with no connection. But I think people are beginning to see that it's not, as you guys have always been saying, it's not just about Julian. In fact, it's not about Julian. It's about a rules-based system of law, and the fact that the Western powers just think they're above the law, and the idea that whistleblowers are the ones that are punished, and no one bats an eyelid about far more serious crimes which are committed by representatives of states. And of course, you guys have known that for a long time, but I think that flame that you've lit is growing stronger, and that's the message I get. Is that people? It's becoming a more of a mainstream message. Yeah, and I was very excited last night about the development.
So how do you think the timing of the two cases, how do they intertwine, and will they help each, like, will it help? Or is the timing of the case in Australia going to be too way behind Julian's? I mean, I know that we're still looking at appeals and all sorts of horrible stuff for Julian where he sits in Belmarsh, and I'm worried about that as it is. But do you think the timing of these cases is going to help us?
I hope so. We're down for a trial in November. While I don't want to rush to trial, it's not impossible that it'll be over by then. And then I think the first thing I want to do is when I get my passport back, is get on a plane to the UK and see how I can help Julian, because I think the principles are the same. And I think that they will. I think I've been very lucky. It's been the sort of perfect storm in that there are quite a few whistleblower cases going on, and we do help each other. The Bernard Cleary case has helped me a lot, because I'm able to say this is someone with no connection with me at all. But his client, witness K, has exactly the same message, that the government doesn't follow the law and acts for corporate interests. And we can't use the security services for corporate interests. Now, that's on at the same time as my case, and I really think that will help Julian, and Julian helps us. I mean, I've got a lot of support from Julian's people, and so I think we are very lucky that. I mean, obviously, it's a bad situation for the world to be in, but in some ways, glass half full cut. It's good that all of these cases are coming on at once, because we do help each other.
Right. Well, Kathy or Tom, do you have anything to ask? Because we have David McBride here. It would be great if you guys wanted to chime in and ask anything while we're all sitting here. You have to unmute yourself. No? Can you? No? Kathy?
No, I totally agree with everything that David says, and I could expand upon that. Maybe I should just read my birthday message for Julian.
Please.
Because it kind of covers it. So my birthday wishes for Julian Assange are, one, that he is able to speak for more than 10 minutes with his family, with Stella and the children, and his parents and extended family. I'm not sure that they allow that kind of thing in Belmarsh. They're so punitive. Also, more importantly, I think that this war on truth that we've been experiencing ceases to pollute our information age prehistory. Because I think the internet age only started a very short time ago, and there's been this explosion of information. And we were very happy to have this transmission of information. That's what Tim Berners-Lee wanted when he gave the World Wide Web to the world, that everybody would be able to look up whatever information they needed to find really quickly, rather than having to go to a library and da-di-da. And also, more importantly, again, is that everybody would have a voice. And it took some time in the history of the internet before that really came to the point where we would be collectively asking questions. For a long time, there were a lot of secrets that we did not have the right to know, and we didn't even know we didn't have the right to know. But as time went on, our questions and our searchings and our publications, in the case of WikiLeaks, became more about what we didn't know and things that have been terribly important to us, still are. And then there was this massive resistance to that. So it became a kind of war on truth. And it became a war not only on what is going on now, but in the Orwellian sense on our history. And of course, that war on our history was always under the surface. You know, in Australia, we grew up with a different history of Australia that didn't include the frontier wars and our massacre of the Indigenous population and our killing of their culture. It is a wound we have to actually get over in Australia. But maybe that's got something to do with Julian Assange's mission. But I think the other really big problem today is that this war on truth is also destroying what we acquired since the Magna Carta, our legal systems to date. They are being undermined. We are discovering conflicts of interest. We are discovering aberrations. You have the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture saying that Julian Assange is being tortured. He's being arbitrarily detained. His life is at risk because of coronavirus, when this is not even a person who's accused of anything in the UK, never mind charged. He's just being held on remand for the Americans, and it looks very likely that he can go. So that's expanding upon my Twitter birthday message, but the conclusion of it is that we need to realize that the aim is to defend the historical record, and thus doing, if Julian is right, we wage peace, because he said if lies start wars, then truth can begin a process of peace. He didn't say that exactly, but that's the gist of it.
If wars
So
can be started by lies, they can be ended by truth, isn't it?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
But also, I've heard people say before, the Magna Carta, they've taken thousands of years for us to build up, free speech to get to this point. And it feels like in some ways we've managed to degrade it in the space of 18 months, 2 years.
Absolutely. This is very recent. We welcomed this influx of information. This was the internet age. This was the age of information where you learn more, probably in a month than you've potentially, and you learned in terms of politics for all of your preceding life, right? But I accompanied this birthday wish with a film. And my choice is somebody I didn't know before, and that is Susie Gilbert, who was on the Don't Extradite Assange recent broadcast. And I thought she did a terrific job in informing people of all the issues. She's got a lot of clarity there. And one of the most important things she said is that it's not a done deal in London. And she gave a lot of reasons why it's not. You should watch the whole thing. It just, that I work for Global News.
Would you like to link it for us and any other videos that you'd like us to show? As long as they're not going to have commercial music on them, because we don't want to get any strikes for anyone, because we're sharing this across lots of platforms.
No. This is my own work. I put this film together. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So if you can send a chat link to me, and then
Can
to
I
Josh?
can I just clarify that the stuff on Consortium News is Creative Commons now. So if you look at it, you have the right to share it.
Right. Okay.
Right?
Thank you so much. Well, listen, Kathy, if you could send a chat message to Josh or to me, actually to me, then I can send it to Josh so that he can play it, so we know where it is. Meanwhile, I actually have a question from a viewer who's watching, who is a long, hardy member of Action for Assange. I always see him on the chat. He's always incredibly friendly. Rob Juno, asking David McBride, are you unmuted, David? Rob Juno asks, what does the army do when the government won't follow its own laws?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. The army does nothing. Dave McBride did something, and that hits the nail on the head. And it doesn't have to be. That's one of the things that the government don't quite get. It doesn't have to be a mass grave of headless corpses. Or, in fact, it's less dangerous for civilization. And Julian Assange pointed this out as well. It's if a soldiers kill people, that's bad. It's obviously bad. It's murder, whatever. But it's more dangerous when the government doesn't follow their own laws. That's a problem, and especially when they think they don't, and not just when they do it by mistake, but when they deliberately, knowing what the law is, and they do something else, then you've got something different from a single crime in the heat of battle. You've got a criminal organisation running the government who pretends to follow the law. They know what it is, and they go and do something else. And they actually use the law as a weapon only against their enemies, like Assange and myself. And they don't apply the law to their corporate sponsors or Hillary Clinton or et cetera, et cetera. It's a big problem, and it's a great question because I found it hard to sell to people. You guys get it, but the public don't really get it. When the government doesn't follow the law, and I'm glad you linked in Magna Carta. It's why we had a civil war in the UK, and it's why we had the Magna Carta. It's a really big issue, and I'm glad that those issues haven't forgotten. I begin to think I'm a bit of a nerd because I love all that Magna Carta. I love the Bill of Rights. I love the English Civil War, and the people that kind of got burned at the stake for translating the Bible into English and all these things. And as you said, what terrifies me is all of those freedoms that were won through blood and tears over 1,000 years. The idea that they're being thrown away overnight for some bloody oil company, it's just disgraceful. And you're right, it's a problem when the government don't follow their own laws, but we need to stand up. And it's not easy, but I guess we've had some successes, things like Watergate, Pentagon Papers. It's not impossible. In Julian's case, I'm hopeful that Julian's case will, it'll blow up in their faces. It may take a few more years, but I think we're going to.
Well, with the Pentagon Papers, wasn't it a technical issue that actually got Ellsberg off?
Funnily enough, it's a great story. No, I just read it. And the same thing could happen in my case. It was kind of disgraceful, even though they handpicked a judge for the case. The judge got fed up with the pressure that was put on them, and the judge came out apparently when he was meant to give a judgment and said, "Look, I've got an announcement to make. I've been offered, he'd been offered a job on the Supreme Court. He'd been offered this, he'd been offered that, and he just said, look, there's far too much political pressure being brought on this case. It's no longer safe anymore," and it was thrown out. I think that there might have been a technical issue to have a retrial. But it's pretty disgraceful. And the same thing's probably happening here. But it just became such a political the charge thing that luckily the judge just couldn't stomach it, and he was being told he had to put Ellsberg in jail, and it had nothing to do with the facts of the matter. I guess because they just thought this is too big a case to lose. The idea that someone can report on government crime and go free. But I mean, if he needed any more evidence about how corrupt the nation had become, the idea that the judge was subject to huge amount of pressure to get a conviction, whether the law required it or not.
So, Kathy or Tom, do you have any questions for each other or for David or between you?
Well, I mean, you've sort of answered it, David. I was going to ask you about where you see the political situation in Australia heading, and especially the erosion of, these rights of whistleblowers, journalists, and I guess also, I'm not sure what your take on this is, but we've written about this campaign against the Labour Party MP. Not that we defend the Labour Party, we certainly don't. We oppose them. But the Labour Party MP, who's now more or less being accused of treason because he's visited China and had dealings with Chinese, individuals. I guess, this is part of the whole foreign interference legislation that was passed without very much attention, but it now appears has a very broad application in Australia against, and can be interpreted very broadly, including to attack a sitting elected member of parliament. Anyway, I'm not sure if you have any particular view about that, but I guess in general, you'd have to say there's been a series of precedents in the past couple of years, and which would be extremely troubling for anyone, about the direction that the Australian ruling class is travelling in. Towards really authoritarian police state forms of rule. And obviously the prime example of that is their total abandonment of Julian Assange. Anyway, that's not so much a question, I guess, but...
No, they're all good points. I get where you're coming from, and I've got a lot to say on them. I think it is coming to a head. For some reason, I'm quite optimistic about it. It's going to be a bit like what we call over here the state of origin, or it could even be a New Zealand-Australian test match back in the days when we actually could almost beat you. In that the forces of the government are strong. Like that case against, that foreign interference case against the Labor politician was a sham. And what was particularly embarrassing was that the news crew were alerted that the AFP, the police force, were going to do the raid, and they were there to film it. Now that's pretty scary, and also it just is such a mockery. Foreign interference, the biggest by far, the 10 times biggest foreign interference in Australia is from the US. They actually own Australia.
Exactly. Yes.
If the US goes to war, we have to go to war with them. It's a completely monolithic security bloc now, Five Eyes, and this is one of the problems with Julian's case with the UK. As far as the UK is concerned, in security terms, he spied on the UK. I mean, there's no difference. And as far as Australia is concerned as well, even though that should not be the case, it's become, the Five Eyes has become this monolithic security bloc, and the president of the United States is the president of Five Eyes. The foreign interference is absolutely, it makes my blood boil in some ways, because it's the Americans who pull the strings out here, and they are foreigners. They're no more, you know. And there was some, I don't know if you saw it. It was quite a funny thing that the ABC, the people who did the Hollow Men, did it, and it's quite a realistic scene in defence. And the politicians saying, you know, what are our main trade routes that we have to protect? And the defence is saying our main trade routes are with China. And they go, okay, well, who are we going to protect them from? And they're like, oh, we need to protect them from China. And the politicians going, well, that doesn't really make any sense, you know. Of course, there are very powerful people in the military-industrial complex. You know, the arms salesmen are very, very powerful in Australia, as they are in America. And so when they say, "Oh, we're going to have to spend, you know, 270 billion or whatever because China's a threat," you know, I suspect it's just, and Russia is now a threat again, of course. We need to, and of course, yeah, here's sign on the check, the dotted line for 270 million bucks worth of it. And it's particularly bad for Australia because it ties us into a war with China if the US goes to war, you know, and it could be like another weapons of mass destruction type thing. We are tied in. But saying that, on the flip side of that, I keep doubling down. If they put me in jail for 30 years or 50 years, I think there'll be a bit of an uproar in Australia. And even though Scott Morrison's popular, I don't think that will stick with a lot of people. I'll say he's a sort of middle-aged, middle-class guy with 2 children, 3 law degrees, who said we were breaking the law, and you're going to put him in jail for 50 years. I think that's going to be a problem for them, even because I think that we've got a certain amount of pull with Conservative votes, and I'm not going to take a backward step. I want a trial. I'm going to say I did the right thing, and it will be a bit of a, you know, a grudge match. And Bernadette is the same. He's got quite a lot of Conservative support, and if they put him in jail as well, and even if at the moment, the Julian hasn't really got sort of mainstream Australia on side, but if he ever goes to America and gets put in jail for a long time in America, I think a mainstream Australia will be pretty outraged. I think that will. So I think that it will come to a head. Yes, the Conservative forces are very powerful here, but it's not. It's only a few scandals away from possible collapse.
Yeah, David, don't you think that to some extent it's a deterrent? It's bluff. 175 years for the rest of your life. This is designed. I mean, and you know, even coming from the Eastern District Court of Virginia, there's the disclaimer that we don't normally actually sentence for that long. So it is designed to frighten people, to frighten other journalists, to frighten other whistleblowers from coming forth with the truth. This is bluster, if you like. Not that I'm telling you not to be afraid and terribly afraid, but you know what I mean?
I agree with that, and I think if Julian ever did get sentenced in the US, he probably wouldn't go in jail for that long because they're trying to make a big show about it. They don't really care whether he's in jail, but they really want to say, "Yeah, look what happened to this guy. He got put in." As they with Bradley or Chelsea Manning, you know, she didn't spend that long in jail. Exactly. But they wanted to they still wanted a conviction, you know, not that it was a pleasant experience for her. And she's one of my heroes, but probably like both of them. I think they are bluffing it. And what pisses them off is a counter bluff when you say, "Yeah, put me in jail. I feel so strongly about this. You know, bite me."
Yeah.
Because,
do your worst.
Do your worst. And they hate that because they expect people to cower. They expect people to run away. And they hate it when you say, "Put me in jail. I'm right." You know, Magna Carta.
Yeah. Can I just ask you a question about Dennis Richardson, the former head of ASIO, who was on Q&A recently and claimed that he had never heard of UC Global spying on Julian Assange. It seems like he hadn't heard of what the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention had said, and what Nils Melzer had said about torture. So I was wondering how the hell he became the head of ASIO if he's never heard of all these things. What kind of bluff are we supposed to think that is? Sorry, that was a rhetorical question.
Yeah, no, I know. My eyes rolled at that too. Dennis Richardson is someone I want to call as a witness in my own case, because he's his own worst enemy. He's so convinced of his own, 20th century view of the world. He really does believe everybody who doesn't wear a pinstripe suit in Canberra and works for an arms company is a bad person, And he doesn't think anything. He's from the Pompeo school of we lie, cheat, and steal, and he always reminds me of in the Tom Cruise movie A Few Good Men. He'd be the Colonel Jessup. He'd just get up there and say, "You can't handle the truth. You hippies don't realise that you sleep safe in your bed at night because people like me are out there keeping you safe from the really bad guys." He actually thinks he's allowed to lie, cheat, and steal because he's Dennis Richardson and he knows how bad the world is and we don't.
Yeah, well, the other thing I was just looking at today was the latest Doctors for Assange letter, the second one, because they've had absolutely no response at all. The first time they reported that Julian Assange was being psychologically tortured, and he has a number of serious medical complaints, one of which is a chronic lung condition that has put him in serious threat of dying actually from coronavirus. But in this one they went a little bit further, and that was to say that anybody who perpetrates torture or sits silent and lets it happen could also be prosecuted. Now, of course, one person came to my mind, and that was Maurice Payne, because she too has been just saying the same old line that he's getting the same consular assistance as anyone else. And, I don't think that, I don't think he's been getting much assistance at all. In fact, his mother, for example, would say that they've done fuck all to help him really for the last 10 years. What do you think about that? That, we're always so busy as whistleblowers, journalists, defending ourselves that we don't think of how culpable these other people are and what risk they run, like in Nuremberg, of being complicit or obeying rules that were really breaking international law, or just being totally complicit through omission of information, but also lack of action in relation to crimes against humanity.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. There's no doubt, especially if you, ironically, if you use the strict rules of law that they apply to Julian and me, there's no doubt people like Maurice Payne, or the British prison authorities, they would be able to be successfully charged. I unfortunately, having seen what I've seen on the insides of workings of government, none of it's a mistake. If we're not in a dystopian world, we're pretty close to it. I don't think there's any. It's not like they haven't thought of Julian. It's not like they're under any illusion that he's getting fair treatment. They want him to die. The best thing for the CIA, and the CIA, controls Australia for things like this, for serious security matters, would be for him to die in Belmarsh. And they are, I don't think they're trying to torture him, they are trying to kill him.
Yeah.
And the problem is with bringing other people to justice, it's hard to do in a world that's so skewed. But as I said before, it's not impossible. You get seismic shifts like Watergate, the end of Vietnam. We've had that French Prime Minister who was recently charged with corruption. It is actually possible, and if the wind shifts enough, as I said, if there's a few scandals, perhaps the Epstein thing will got a few more scandals, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of those people do end up getting charged. Certainly in my own case, that's always been how I've framed it. I've said, rather than be a whistleblower, I'm pleading not guilty because I want to put the government on trial. I want the former chief of the Defence Force, the former Defence Minister to come in, and I want to cross-examine them because I believe they're the ones that committed the offences, and not me. I may not get a conviction, but it is quite possible that they will be so embarrassed having to answer questions without the spin doctors, without the friendly press, that it'll be quite clear that they have committed crimes. You can imagine if they'd ever been able to put Tony Blair or George W. Bush on the stand and really ask them some hard questions about the weapons of mass destruction and the 30 minutes of missiles on London, Lord Goldschmidt, they would have got a job. You know, they have committed offences, and the idea of putting Julian Assange in jail and not all the American officials or worldwide officials, but Americans who have got cases to answer, that's a crime in itself. That's the sort of thing that Nazis did. You know, it's clear.
Oh, well, I mean, in America, maybe not in Australia, but in America, there is an executive order from 2009 from Barack Obama, which is kind of ironic in a way, but it's Executive Order 13526, Section 1.7, that says that it's illegal in the United States to classify information to hide a crime or embarrassment. It's a pity we don't have something like that in Australia. It would really help you now, but it actually does exist. And I mean, and a lot of those things, not the collateral murder video was not classified. I think it was so shameful that it didn't even pass through the classification system. But for example, the incident in 2006 where US soldiers came and summarily executed a whole family, I believe, but 10 Iraqi civilians, four women, including 4 women and 5 children, and then sent an airstrike to cover the evidence. That was the WikiLeaks leak that ended the Iraq War, because as a result of that leak, the Iraqi government, the Iraqi people were so disgusted to find this out that not only had the heinous crime been committed by the soldiers who were off their tree on the day, perhaps, but then at a higher level to stage an airstrike to cover that up, that the Iraqi government refused for the following year, which was 2012, they refused to give immunity to American soldiers, and that's why the American army had to withdraw from Iraq. So, you know, as these truths are brought out, they have monumental consequences sometime, and I think perhaps that's why there is such a resistance. But shit, we don't even have a Bill of Rights in Australia, but you know, Americans could do something about this, and I think it's certainly something to call up, that every one of these leaks, and by no coincidence, WikiLeaks leaks about crimes in Afghanistan and what you have to say, had to say so much later. It's no coincidence that they're kind of about the same activity.
Yeah, that's it. And I'm glad you mentioned that example because you're spot on. It's not so much about soldiers going nuts on the ground because they're high. You know, that will always happen in a war. It is about some general sending a missile down onto a house to cover up a crime. Every time a middle-ranking official from any government does something like that, that eats away at our soul. You know, when I grew up and I went to Sandhurst and I went to Oxford University, there was no doubt in my mind that the Western democracies were the good guys of the world. And that's really been shaken, you know, and it's not shaken because a soldier does something wrong. It is shaken because a general does something like that. And I've seen it again and again. And it doesn't have to be, they get away with it a bit because it's not about killing, but the weapons of mass destruction, some of the things we've done in Australia, where the generals, they think that they're really clever because they say, oh, well, like for that case, or there was a Pat Tillman case, who was like a famous American footballer who joined the army, and we killed him by mistake. Well, maybe it wasn't a mistake. The Americans shot their own guy, and then they made this huge song and dance about trying to cover it up, and it went up to a very high level. That's when you rot your nation's soul, when hundreds of people know that you're lying and they all tag along with it. And that happened in Australia. We put out huge public misinformation campaigns to the Australian people. And it wasn't one man who told the lie. It was 50 senior people who got involved with it. Now, that's not about lying. That's about killing Australia's soul. I mean, you would have seen the Four Corners program where they had a couple of months ago, and they had an SAS soldier who just shoots someone in the head pretty much just for the hell of it. And that is really shocking because he's not just shooting that Afghan in the head. To a certain extent, he is shooting the SAS in the head because it just showed you he did it blatantly in front of his friends, or he asks his boss whether he should do it. The boss says yes. They all know, everybody in the little patrol knows. When they get back, they probably tell their friend. They didn't just shoot the guy, they planted some incriminating evidence on the dead body, and they had to get the incriminating evidence from somewhere else. So another 10 people knew about that. Everybody gets back. Now, that single shot really hits a nation, because it wasn't so much the killing of the one man, but the fact that 50, 100 people knew about it. It probably happened more than once, and they didn't do anything. Now, if we do stuff like that, how can we be the good guys of the world?
Well, a lot of us are good guys, and you know we have terrific law that dates back to the Magna Carta. I think what we have to come to terms with is that there are no exceptions. There's not a top tier that doesn't apply to, and that everybody has to lie to make it sound like it fits in the rules. The rules are still the same. They're just, they've just got to apply to one and all, whether you're fighting a battle, and that's questionable in itself. All this $270 billion. Hello, don't we need the money at the moment?
Well, the law does apply to us all, but the problem comes, and this is why I think it's really quite insidious. These people know that, and they will put out some sort of good news message. This was what used to make me sick about the Australian Defence Force. They had so many messages about, integrity and honesty are our touchstones, and they'd put out this. It was like 1984. You'd have to walk past those messages all the time, and yet the same people putting out those messages woke up each morning and said, what lie am I going to tell today? Now it's a whole new level of sick. It was like as if the people that taught you the Magna Carta were actually serial killers. It's the same kind of sense of outrage that you would have got if you were a good priest and you joined the Catholic Church in Australia in the 70s, and you saw a case of pedophilia, and then you complained about it, and then you complained about it, then you got moved around Australia, and you saw the whole church was in. You can imagine that kind of shock when you suddenly realised it wasn't an isolated case. It went all the way to the top. It was affected everybody, and it was opposite to what you were meant to be doing. It's
And you
that
got
kind of.
excommunicated.
Yeah, exactly. That's the Australian Defence Force today.
That's the Aussie way.
It's not an isolated problem. It's endemic, and it's even worse because they talk a good game and they say, "Oh, we're all about honesty. We're all about integrity. We're all about moral courage." They love that. There's not too many people that have ever stood up, but they're all about moral courage. Yeah.
Well, David, I think in time, and I'm thinking of the long term, it will straighten itself out. Maybe not with your case, but in the long term, facts are facts, and they become irrefutable. Well, there's great resistance to bury. It is a big information war, but we have to engage as many people as possible to fight on the side of facts, truth, justice, and the Australian way.
I think we'll win. I think we'll win as well. But it's a hard battle, and we will only win by calling out crime when we see it. We can't look the other way. We've got to call it out, and we've got to call it how it is.
Yeah, no matter of our whatever contract we sign. Yeah.
Well, you can't contract not to report a crime. That's an illegal contract. I know the Australian government think that you can, but it goes as far back to the Magna Carta.
And you can't.
You can't make some sort of deal with someone and say, "Oh, by the way, if I kill my wife and bury them in a shallow grave, you're not allowed to tell anybody." It's just it doesn't work that way.
Excellent point. Excellent point. I'm going to hand it back to Alex now, who's been off for a break.
Thank you.
Talking to me, David.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, David. And I'm not sure while I was away, did that other audience question get asked? I think perhaps David already answered it in some ways. I sent it to you, Kathy, or at least I sent it to everyone. Martin O'Connor, if David is successful in his case, what would he most like to see as the outcome of his revelations? Do you think you've covered that? Because I missed a bit.
No, I haven't covered that actually. I think that I would like to see that some sort of truth and reconciliation. I'm not about just negativity. I think everybody's human. People make mistakes, but I would like to be involved in the rebuilding of the Defence Force. I'd like to be a consultant. I would like to go to the UK and see if I can help with Julian. So I've got a book being published, and I'd like to do kind of speaking tours. And everybody's human, and I would like to move forward where we get away from lessen political donations. I think that's a bit of a big problem. And I would like to sort of move towards truth in political advertising. And I think a lot of positive change can happen. And I would like to then, I guess, start a revolution in truth, as we said, in everything, to make, because you can be any kind of a, and that's what used to make very frustrating. You can do a lot legally in the world. You don't have to lie. And it's very frustrating for me to see so many lies and mistakes when they could have been prevented, and the truth would have done. We kill people by mistake in a war zone. We fess up to it and we look them in the eye and we say, we're very sorry. We don't cover it up with a big bowl, because we're worried about, someone's opinion poll. And I would like to start a revolution where we just start telling things how it is. But on a positive note, I'd like to help the ADF to rebuild itself.
Right. Well, I mean, do you think that a certain extent our privacy that we have to trade for transparency is something that we're willing to trade, or do we feel that our privacy as people, we should still be also fighting to not be surveilled and not have all this stuff going on, but also be allowed to have the transparency? How do you feel about that? Do you feel that, you know, you have to give away a certain amount of your privacy for your safety, and therefore then we can have transparent government? Do you think that that's the quid pro quo, if you like?
Yeah, it's a good question, and privacy is a bit like the good question somebody raised before about, you know, what happens when the government doesn't follow its own laws. It doesn't necessarily sound sexy. Privacy is a hard thing to sell, but it is important because now the security services don't play fair, and the problem with the privacy thing is, and Snowden pointed this out, one of the biggest problems was you can't get the Director of National Security to say, we don't do bulk email, you know, we don't do bulk email surveillance or whatever, when they do. So that's not really a privacy. That's the sort of thing that rots a nation's soul. And you've got a key person who goes on TV and says something which is an absolute lie, and thinks that's okay, and yet it's against the law to do that. That was the big problem with that, is that we've become we rot our own soul, you know, in thinking that we are protecting our freedoms, we are actually killing them by, you know, the actions to defend them. I don't, you know, if they want to do bulk surveillance of people's emails or whatever, they have to say that they're going to do it. Of course, it's a bit like the torture in, you know, after 9/11. It achieved very little. You know, it had very little information kind of thing, and it achieved enormous amount of damage because it went against all our principles, you know, black sites, and the privacy is the same, in the sense that if we lie about, if governments lie to their people about what they're doing, in order to look at, you know, information in our emails, we've damaged our nation more than anything we could have got out of the emails. And it's so, you know, anyone that works in the security business knows that if you're a terrorist who's actually capable of doing any damage, you know, you don't use emails, you don't have a mobile phone, all these things that we think are so kind of smart. You're not going to catch anyone of any great importance, but you are just going to, you know, rot away at your own soul by not following your own laws.
One of the things we compared with when Christchurch, you know, they didn't seem to pick up the Christchurch shooter, even though he managed to do an awful lot here, and apparently there was some news of there being picked up. But what we kind of marvelled at as Assange supporters around the world, and particularly in New Zealand, is the comparison of how surveilled we would be, even though all we're doing is organising protests for Assange or trying to. We know damn well that we're going to be surveilled. So it seems crazy that we're in a world where WikiLeaks, free press, information activists are the surveilled, and the person that does all that atrocities in Christchurch apparently just whisked through without anyone seeing anything. Yet they're gathering up every single piece of data, every single piece of light, you know.
And you know, there's probably a lot of facets to this ridiculous situation, but one of the big ones would be some contractor has gone to the government and said, "Oh, you know, if you give us 500 million, we'll be able to catch terrorists. We've got this great system we're going to sell to you." And of course, someone's got a kickback, and then someone's got a bribe. But you know, no sensible. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't catch anybody. They didn't have any clue about 9/11 beforehand. And you're right about you're being surveilled. I'm being surveilled. In fact, there's a fair bit of black humour I think it'd be a very good time for a terrorist to attack Australia now, because everybody in the Australian security industry is monitoring me, Bernard Collaery, Assange supporters, other whistleblowers, and it's not that a big a community. And frankly, there would be almost nobody left. There'd be nobody left on the real terror. And the obscene thing is they don't see that's a problem. They would have spent millions and spent some operatives following me around. They probably followed me to Spain or whatever. And nobody's there is no adult supervision to say, is this guy actually a security threat? That's one of the things that worried me about the same as we saw in America, where the Democrats used the NSA to spy on Trump. There's no adult supervision to say, really, do you think you don't have probable cause, and do you think David McBride's really like a security threat? And yet to put 24/7 ASIO. Yeah, no one, he's obviously a political agitator, but is he a security threat? And yet there's no one to say, there's no one sort of says, well, an ISIS guy with a record bombing up buildings, there's no one that says he's a real security threat and I'm not. And unfortunately now that the ministers control ASIO and ISIS, if the minister doesn't like me, you've got 10 people assigned to you.
Did you hear in New Zealand the government had to reveal how much they'd been spying on activists, because a lot had been revealed regarding Greenpeace, Mana, a lot of activists had been surveilled, and one of them was Keith Locke. Since he was a child, he's a Green MP, former Green MP in New Zealand, and apparently because his mum and dad were anti-war activists, possibly involved in the government somehow, but because they were anti-war activists, he had been surveilled, and it was shown that he'd been surveilled since he was like a little kid, and right through to now. And that came out. And I think Action for Assange, if Josh is still there, they'll confirm that we actually have a name for the spooks that keep pissing about with lives. That's it, Kevin. And we've got an Australian one. There's ones for each country. We've got different names. It's just brilliant. And a female version.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I
was going to say today, the two of us from Free Assange yesterday, when we got together and we'd done massive amounts of billboards on the motorway and all sorts of things all day. We were at the Parliament, and when our two phones came in the same house, it's like they had already been slow, but then when they both came in the same house, he's a TPP activist and he's like an advocate. He's always in Parliament talking about bills. And when our phones came together, they pretty much stopped working altogether on my Wi-Fi at home. Both of us, we were just like, wow, what's going on here?
Yeah. You have to have a lot of, I'm pleased you have a fair bit of black humour as well. We do that as well. My lawyers and I, we always begin each conversation. It's almost like a welcome to country, but we say, welcome to the agents listening in, and we hope you're having a good night tonight, and it's not too boring. And my attitude is to give them as much transcript as possible to have to go through. And so we talk and talk and talk, and this is a little bit of you can do some research. You've got to find out whether they have an operation name for your surveillance. I know that you haven't made it till you've got an op name.
Can you do a freedom of information request for your own data when it comes to your own surveillance? I mean, how does that go down? Would you have to know where to apply and what code name?
Unfortunately, they're pretty exempt, which is a real problem, because one of the things I want to do after I win my case is a damages claim, and I want to ask I want to find out how much they spent on surveilling me, and all the things they did. I think that they did come to my 12-year-old daughter's window at night and kind of knocked on the And I want to embarrass them. I want to embarrass them and say, look at these, they spoke to prospective employers of mine. Bernard Cleary thinks they even follow him to the cafe. And they don't just follow you, they put out whispering messages to people you might know. Yeah, I would love for that to be opened up in some sort of truth, just to shame them, even if it wasn't damages, but just to make the Australian public see what a bunch of gooses they are. And it'd be the same in your case.
Even just a really silly glimpse that would be such a shareable moment. Like even if you could just give one little shed of light into one funny, and then it would be a viral thing. It would be wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes embarrassment and humour is the best way. I mean, there was a big shock about Australian politician who used a helicopter to go to a fundraiser or whatever. But I'd like to see how many helicopters they've used above my house, while I'm having a nap, and how much money they've wasted on things like that. It'd just be embarrassing for them.
Yeah. Well, listen, David, we've got, I've just heard from Kathy that we might have Joe Laurier from Consortium News joining us. Is that right, Kathy?
No, I'm.
No. You thought you were.
I'm going to speak on his behalf. But
are you?
Yeah, I just checked with him. But before I say that, I could recommend quite a good book because I've been producing politics in the pub in Sydney for 6 years. And there was a really terrific book that came out called.
This is a Zoom call I have.
Hang on, David. Can you mute while you're talking to your family? Sorry, are you able to mute your sound when? Hang on, we're back to Kathy.
Yeah. So David might be interested in this if he's still listening. But there's a terrific book called Our ASIO Files that Meredith Bergerman put together, and she came to Politics in the Pub to talk about that, and it was really hilarious. Now, these kinds of files are these files on people that they were released after 30 years, and so when Politics in the Pub in Sydney was born 30 years ago. Right, we're having our 30th anniversary. It's the oldest event of its kind, and it used to be visited by intelligence people and all that until they learned the technology and were able to do that remotely. But these all of these people that came over the years to Politics in the Pub, it turned out after 30 years they found out that they all had ASIO files on them. And so Meredith compiled a book of people talking about what was in their ASIO files, and it was the most ridiculous amount of trivia and stupid assumptions, even like about certain people that visited their houses, and it was people who'd come to fix the fridge or, that kind of thing. But so on behalf of Joe, and I don't know if David is still listening, but and me as well, because I'm the producer of the show, we'd like to, and we've been interested for a long time in inviting David McBride onto CN Live. We really want to get him on to talk to some of our people in Washington and compare notes, between the two countries, because we have that problem in common. Being part of the Five Eyes, there is this massive agenda to control the narrative, and as Caitlin Johnson said, he who controls the narrative controls the world. But this is a major problem at the beginning. Well, now 2 decades into the 21st century, and things should be different by now. But it's a problem that we have to solve, and it would be a real pleasure to have David on Consortium News come on and talk to us and our public. So if David do that,
I'd love it. I'd love it, and I can tell you, it really helps me because to know you're not alone. And most of the time, I thought I was alone, and I was very, very down. And to hear other people from around the world, especially in America, really know what's going on, professionals like me, it is just music to my ears. I just love it. I feel like $1 million afterwards, even if just hearing about other scams going on in other parts of the world, let alone talking about my own. I just love it. And I did one already. I don't think it was, and I didn't even really know who it was. And I just kind of picked up the phone and I was half asleep. And it buoyed me so much that I'd love it. So anytime you want to call, I'd love to chat.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Over to
I
you.
actually had a wonderful experience at a Juneteenth party, which is sort of race related, and it also happens to be my friend's birthday party. But she didn't want to celebrate it. She wanted everyone to come and show their talents or do a speech. And we had this girlfriend of mine came in Abraham Lincoln beard and did the founding fathers speech with beautiful singing by a black choir. Swing Low, Sweet Chariot going on in the background with a video screen. Well, Kathy, after that, I got up and I did Let the Light In. I did exactly what I did at Politics at the Pub in Sydney. I flew over to Sydney for one day and did it. Got fundraising, And so we did. Kathy had recut a video which I made quite crudely one Christmas Eve, and it went to 300,000 impressions on Twitter. It was insane that day, but it was a pretty crude video. Like, it used my old candle photos from a couple of years ago. The reason I did it was because Alex Taylor was a major sort of inspiration for me to play the violin in the first place for activism. And then he asked me to play it along with this song because he felt it was a bit empty. So I played the second violin part. Well, at this Juneteenth party last week, I played the violin again with the video playing on a big screen beside me. About 40 people in the room. First party since COVID. We're not in the COVID lockdown in New Zealand. We're very open now. And so it was one of the first parties that I've been to. Lots of people all sitting around listening to these speeches, and I did my thing. And I gave a very light speech because I didn't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole on a birthday. And so I just said, if you think this isn't about you, this man, it's about, this is about free press, it's about information. And I kept it quite light, and I just said, anyone can organise birthday celebrations in 62 cities, whatever your passion is, you could do it. I'm just a mum from Island Bay, all that sort of stuff. And I finished my speech. And this woman from across the room, she piped up, she went, well, there's another side to this story. And I heard the S and I thought, oh, crikey, I can't do this in front of kids and whole families and everything. I can't do Sweden. I can't do this right now. And you know what it was? It wasn't Sweden. It would have been Sweden 2 years ago. It would have been, but no, it was Seth Rich, and a school teacher from my local area comes back at the whole room and went down the rabbit hole with Seth Rich, and it was really fascinating, like a completely different perspective, and it was really well received by the whole audience, especially after Let the Light In, Kathy. It was really, really heartwarming to feel that there were people even in your local community that knew all the same kind of information potentially as you. It was interesting. So, and in fact, I was going to get Josh to play Let the Light In at a convenient moment, and then we can have a chat and whatever behind the scenes. But did you still want to about Joe, what Joe wanted to say as well more?
No, the invitation was what Joe wanted.
Right. Okay.
And by the way, David, I'm in Sydney. I'm the producer of the show, but I'm in Sydney. This is a US-Australian production now. We're claiming part of it. So that's why you're seeing Mark Davis give his revelations here live. That's why you've got Mary Costacadis, Quentin Dempster, and Tony Kevin, former ambassador to Cambodia and Poland. This is why you've got some significant Australians that have got a voice now in that neck of the woods.
And is Joe in Sydney, in Australia these days, or is he back in America now?
Joe is safe wherever he is.
Okay. Oh, okay. We're not saying that. All right. I didn't realize that. I just was wondering where he got to. But
No, he's here. He's here. Yeah, yeah,
okay, great.
yeah.
Okay.
He's in the Sydney bureau.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm glad you were able to invite David, and that all worked out really well, and that's been a really great session. So I've also got some videos through Josh, and if Josh is hearing me, I'm not accessing my chat at the moment because I'm doing a live a watch party on my phone. So I was wondering if Josh would come back in soon and help us with a couple of Facebook links that I gave you before. I found one of Sydney and I found one from Melbourne. But yeah, you also had another. Did you have Let the Light In queued up? Was that? Yep. Okay, well, Kathy, do you want to give an introduction about what you did to the beautiful Let the Light In video, which
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I just, you were saying that you put some images from your candles thing, and I listened to that song, and I just thought it was like one of the most beautiful songs I'd heard in a long time, straight from the heart, but such a great composition, melody, and musicianship, the voice of an angel. And well, I had quite a lot of images because I've been, I guess I've been making activist films probably for the first time in my life, but since 2010, particularly about WikiLeaks, but other things as well, and Indigenous rights and refugees and all that kind of thing as well. But when I saw this film, I just thought, well, I could maybe add to this, and I had some beautiful images of a film that I did with John Pilger, and I thought that the pace of that would be nice and slow, and time to think of things that would be just right for the meaning of this song. And yeah, it kind of brings a little tear to my eyes still when I listen to it. So well done, you. And thank you so much for coming the whole way from New Zealand to Sydney to play along with it. That was
because of
extraordinary.
Timothy, who does a lot of the Free Assange, and we've just put out a new version of Yellow Ribbons actually today, which he just recorded. He literally did a fly-by-night. He's driving up and down the country, so he just came in and did a 20-minute session and recorded this beautiful. I haven't put violin to it yet, but I will for the candles video. And he recorded the Yellow Ribbons in the sitting room in 20 minutes, and then he was out the door again.
Right.
But yeah, it was thanks to him actually.
Is that another song then?
To get there to Sydney because it was a crazy thing to do, and I had to be back.
Yeah.
I think it was a birthday party I had to get back for my children or something, wasn't it? Silly, but
Is that song "Tie a Yellow Ribbon Round the Old Oak Tree"?
Yeah, but we've changed the words.
I hope you did it justice.
Well, he's
don't like that one.
No, what? But he's done a beautiful job actually, and Fiona Hanson changed the words to make them Julian Assange.
Ah, okay.
So, and you see, the thing is, it was I think Christine started the Yellow Ribbons for Assange idea.
Yeah,
It's gone so well. We wanted to support it. Truman Human's been doing a lot of work on it, and I've been getting photos in since requesting the birthday vigils, seeing if anyone wanted me to list their birthday vigil. I've been getting loads of photos in from Tasmania. I think I might even be able to talk to some of these people. It might have to happen tomorrow, though, by this time.
Yeah.
But,
well, that was very popular. That song was very popular. I mean, the concept of tying a yellow ribbon was very popular in the United States when people wanted, even further back, when people wanted their family members to come back from war. But it was a very kind of light-hearted song, and not terribly good. But so I'm all for culture jamming, but if you can make something better, it's even better.
Yeah, well, we'll try. So I think what we'll do is we'll play Let the Light In now, and we won't be able to hear it, but we will have to mute our things for now, but we can go back to chat. Yeah, and Josh, sorry, I'm doing a watch party on my phone, so I'm not accessing chat at the moment. I'll try and do one downstairs. Brilliant. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, let's play it.
Hello, we've got a very passionate supporter of Julian Assange. She comes to nearly all our vigils and she wants us to read a little message. It's a message straight from the heart, from Christina. She wrote it herself. So please. As Julian says, the best way to achieve justice is to expose injustice. That's what Mr. Julian Assange's scientific journalism achieves, justice. That's what his secure Dropbox enables, justice. That's why Mr. Assange is the most distinguished, award-winning Australian journalist in history. That's why corrupt people in power fear him. That's why the corrupt loathe the honest citizens he assists, courageous whistleblowers in business, workplaces, banks, the police, the military and governments. It's time to jail those criminals and to free Mr. Julian Assange. Our right to know is his right to publish the truth. We need a functioning democracy, not a corrupt democracy. Sign petitions, write to UNPs, inform others, join protests. We have very little time. Marisa Payne, do your job.
Woo! Free Assange! Shame Maurice Payne!
We demand!
To set up some candles for Julian. We're down here at Bondi Beach to set up some candles for Julian for his 49th birthday. Unfortunately the wind has blown them out, but you can see there's a lot of support for Julian. Wishing you were here. All the best.
All right, we will be back momentarily.
Okay, everybody, we are at the Parliament and they are sitting today in New Zealand and we have a wonderful new couple of banners. We've been out on the motorway for 2 hours this morning and we think probably 50,000 cars maybe saw our sign. We can change the dates in the future so it's reusable. We have a protest tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Cuba Street and Left Bank, and we are celebrating Julian Assange's birthday. How many birthdays is this man going to be locked up for just reporting war crimes? How many? How many for telling the truth? How many for exposing genocide? How many for exposing ecocide? Like, we have just seen all the truth through WikiLeaks, and no other media organisation has had that record, have they? That's right. So can I get in the picture? Someone hold it for me and I'm going to jump in. Oh, thank you, sweetie. Thank you. Awesome. You hold it like that. And I'm going to go.
That's it.
So, huge thank you to Greg and Amanda and everyone from Free Assange New Zealand who made these happen.
Yeah. It's still happening.
Cuba Street tomorrow.
Hi, world. Happy birthday, Julian.
It's going to be in 36 cities, and New Zealand helped organise that. So please get on board. Yay!
Yay!
Free the tree! Thank you so much.
Oh, cheers.
We're delighted to have with us the President of the United States, Donald Trump, George White.
Please get ready for the sun's coming. Oh, there'll be signs and wonders. Oh, there'll be signs and wonders. Oh, there'll be signs and wonders. We'll turn round and start over. We'll turn round and just start over. We'll turn round and just start over. For the time is gone. I believe in being ready. I believe in being ready. I believe in being ready. For the time is drawing. For the time is drawing. Beautiful. Woo! Yay! Good job, girl. So nice. Right, well, we're just finishing up now, and Nikki Hager is giving a talk just a little short distance away. So we've got still a little crew left over 2 hours later. Really lovely, and thank you so much for all coming. And there's Free Julian. Maybe I can get in it too and someone can hold it. And does anyone want to say any messages for Julian on his birthday? Here you go. It's
Free
videoing.
Assange.
It's videoing. Your hand. Yep. Happy birthday, Julian. We're sorry you have to spend another one in jail just for reporting the truth. I'm really sorry, but there are 46 cities or something like that having birthday vigils or something
And unmuted. So, Josh, are we live now with Action for Assange? Brilliant. Okay, so I think we've got Kat Mima possibly coming to join us. I've sent the link to her. I thought I had sent it already, but obviously. Okay, cool. So we can get her coming in soon. And I believe that we've had a series of videos in a kind of crazy pickle of an order, which is just the order that I'm sending links to Josh. But I've been cruising around Melbourne for WikiLeaks, who had a protest today. I had a look at Sydney. They've had a selfie thing today where they're asking people to send Julian messages as a selfie video or some kind of presentation to support Assange and WikiLeaks coalition in Sydney. Also there you would have seen a beautiful duet by a couple of girls at the protest yesterday, and they reached out to us because they happened to be going to Parliament the same day for protest, and they realised that their issues were exactly the same as our issues. They were fighting the COVID bill from a whole bunch of different perspectives, to do with children, to do with human rights, to do with surveillance, all those things, and transparency. And they reached out to Free Assange New Zealand, and so we had a sort of joint protest at Parliament yesterday, sort of a pre-birthday party, and that footage might have been going out as well. And you might have seen a flag there. It's a really important old flag of New Zealand, sort of harks back to we'd love it to be Aotearoa, not Corporation New Zealand, and that's the original Maori flag, and it's a very powerful symbol here, I think. So it was quite nice to get some footage of it at Parliament at Beehive. We call our Parliament here Beehive. I suppose they built that building thinking it was like a busy bee, a hive. But it's sort of like a really horrible, non-transparent, concrete, it's just like the epitome of closing out public as a building. But anyway, so yeah, that footage has been rolled out by Josh, I believe, in a pickle of an order. And maybe have you been showing some yellow ribbon tree photos, slideshows as well? Cool. Cool. We're getting them in from all over the place. We've had some beautiful photos from Tasmania, which have appeared on my thread on Candles for Assange on Twitter. And yeah, so there's been lots of beautiful videos and things coming through, and we've just been playing them out in no particular order. So what I'm thinking, Josh, is if we don't have Kat Mima soon, we've done quite a good sit for tonight already, and we could always go back live later unless you had something lined up that you wanted to show. What are you thinking, Josh? Oh, you've gone. Okay. Well, if it's just going to be me, I might as well tell you what we've been doing in Wellington over the last 2 days. So we got vinyl made up very kindly by someone at Cost, big yellow banner to sort of hark at the yellow ribbons for Assange. And we put it across the motorway both ways on the day that Parliament sat again, right in the middle of Wellington. And we think probably about 50,000 cars went both ways past that, because it's quite a nice little intersection. It's really close to Parliament. So we did those billboards up, and we kept them up for 2 hours, which was incredible. We thought the police would have us remove them usually probably within half an hour, but they seemed to leave us alone. It was a very rainy day, very windy, very cold, so perhaps they just didn't want to get out there. Anyway, after that, we started tying yellow ribbons around trees at Parliament, and we met up with those protesters who are called Revolution. They've got a group on Facebook, and the love is back to front letters. Revolution, and they're protesting for transparency and surveillance in New Zealand, which is a very heavily surveilled country. And then, so after we did that, we had a few speeches speeches. They had a few speeches, and in their speeches, almost all the speakers acknowledged Julian. Some of them spoke at length about him, and so it was really refreshing, because normally we would have at a Free Assange New Zealand protest, 20 people, something like that, but it was a much bigger crowd. It's probably about 40 or 50. So it felt like we were getting the word out to more people, and these were people who were very open to the ideas that we were sort of putting forward for free press. Right, I'm just wondering if I share the screen, Josh, because you've disappeared. Oh, you're there. Yeah, so I was just saying, if Cat Mima isn't going to come in the stream right now, and I have, yeah, okay. Well, I was just wondering if there's any more videos that we want to play from the links that I've been sending you. The one I was worried about, the one that I was worried about was for the copyright was Candles for Assange. Last year we used Stevie Wonder, and I used 30 seconds of Stevie Wonder at the beginning, and then it goes to Stevie Wonder anyway, but it's a choir singing, and so I thought I might get away with that. But I think even just the track, even just the sound of Happy Birthday, which is a pain. So I didn't know that when I made the video last year. So this year it'll be, well, we'll see how it goes. Hopefully you didn't get a copyright strike for our Yellow Ribbons version, did you? Yeah, have you got some music with that as well? Ah, that's a pain. It's going to be silent, isn't it? Unless we talk through them. No, we can't do that either. I've got a video of us being accosted by guards at Parliament, which is quite interesting. Which I could send you, which hasn't got any music in it. I can promise that. If you're interested, yeah. So I hopefully, I don't know if it breaks into music at the end of it, because I do tend to do things like that. But I'm just going to send you a link now for basically we were at Parliament, and we were just trying to collect names and addresses of other supporters who were with us, protesting. And so we had clipboards, and they were signing in, and they wouldn't let us write down names. They wouldn't let us take down contact details of other people. Yes, and we couldn't believe it. So I stormed into the Parliament and I asked, if I could see that law written down in writing, because I didn't understand it. And then they told me that the Speaker of the House could make up the rules on any given day, depending on whatever's going on. And would you believe they told us that we're just simply not allowed to take email addresses. It was completely mad. So I'm sending you that link right now. It's just on my YouTube channel. Are you watching them as they're playing, or do you not get to see them either, Josh? Yeah, cool. So if you just make sure it doesn't cut into music, maybe you could just turn it off if it after the bit. Yeah, because the beginning I'm pretty sure is just, and what you'll see is me undercover recording the guard and what he said, and it's incredibly Orwellian. And I got banned from Parliament that day because I pretended that I was going into the use the toilet. And I forgot to go to the toilet while I was there. So funny enough, because I went to the desk and asked about that law, and the piece of paper that I was demanding that it was got to be written on, because surely it was a law that they'd already agreed on. It was written somewhere, and they hurried me out, and so I never went to the loo. And then they said that I deceived them because I told them that I was going to the toilet. So therefore, I'm permanently banned from Parliament. But the trouble was, I think I'd already kind of been banned because of the World Press Freedom breakfast from the previous year, where I came and did an uninvited speech, if you could call it that. Yeah, cool. All right then. So I've just sent you that link now, and we can look at what the guards are like at New Zealand Parliament.
Can you tell me what on earth it came out of? Sorry?
Just to contact people
well,
for
I
protest
understand
relief.
from
Is that really...
reality,
Can I film you saying that?
No.
Okay.
Can you tell me what on earth it came out of? Sorry? Well, I understand from what Alex said that you weren't allowed collecting signatures. That's public ground, that's public space.
This space belongs to Parliament,
Yeah,
and on behalf
and the New
of
Zealand people.
Yeah, the whole building does, and everything
the whole
does.
New Zealand
but
people.
that doesn't mean you can particularly go into the Prime Minister's office, although she belongs to the people.
Yeah,
So
but
because this is
there's
working-
nothing stopping you collecting signatures out
There
there.
is,
And why you? Where does it say? Can you give me? This is totally new because I've been active in campaigns for 50 years, and I've never ever heard of that. And I was also Green Party regional councillor for 9 years, and I don't. Can you tell me where that's come from? Who's made that?
That comes from the Speaker's office, Speaker of Parliament.
So the Speaker of the Parliament, and when did he issue that decree?
It's been years and years. You can look
That you're not allowed to collect signatures on Parliament grounds.
Then you understand why. You don't have to agree, of course. It's your right not to agree. You see, this Parliament belongs to everyone.
Yeah.
And if you start allowing people to collect signatures of your pamphlets from one particular organisation, it means people on Parliament are seen to be promoting one particular thing, whereas the people for everyone has their own views. So to avoid that, so you can go outside the Parliament grounds on the road and do it. That's fine.
But I can't. That seemed pretty bizarre to me. The reasoning behind it just seemed completely rational.
It's so that everyone is
actually a petition is giving voice to the people, and you can have multiple petitions. You could have one doing one side and one doing another side, and it's a free.
Then what will happen is people start getting.
Well, in New
and
Zealand,
then you have
issues. New Zealand,
so to avoid that,
people are more respectful of each other. Fortunately, we haven't had this sort of war. Only extremists like this guy that in Christchurch. But that is not behaviour from 99%.
I've been here 2 years and I've seen police having to break up here because two people had opposing views. So it's
you always can have two.
So that's
two
the reasoning
people
behind that.
But that's not. I mean, if some people are fighting, then obviously you need police or somebody to intervene to stop.
You could always write.
That's not the way.
You could always write to the Speaker and ask why this is.
Yeah, well, it certainly will.
Yeah.
Alex, you're self-interested. We didn't attack one of them, but that's totally irrational that they have...
Apparently the Speaker sets the laws, and we should have looked at the piece of paper that the Speaker gave us. Well, I don't know who they gave the paper to, but I...
Chasing him yesterday, and he had to stow himself away. He had to take extreme caution, cause they were very strong. But they had to let him be in the Ecuadorian embassy. They had to let him be in the Ecuadorian embassy. He exposed them, disrobed them, Julian Assange. Yeah. He exposed them, disrobed them. They don't care for democracy when protecting their war machine. No, they don't care for democracy when protecting all their dodgy schemes. freedom of press and freedom to express, freedoms of speech that they applied to WikiLeaks. Now they want him to expose them, enemies of their state. Now they want him to expose them because of Russiagate. And he exposed them, exposed them, Julian Assange.
He exposed them, disrobed them, Julian Assange. He exposed them, disrobed them. What happened to United States? It's just a big mess, isn't it? Well, I can't do as well as Timothy because I'm not a singer.
I tried. That was amazing. That was lovely.
Right, so hopefully you've just seen about 9 minutes of a Free Assange New Zealand video that we put out quite a while ago. It was during the February protests. You might have seen maps of the world going around, which is Somerset Beacon's beautiful graphics of all the events that were going on when the trial started. Because we did a global kind of get together again, and then we were trying to get all the solidarity actions going, and that's always been a focus of mine, because I feel like we've always felt very alone, all these Assange supporters all around the world, and the feeling that the world can all join together and protest together, even in small groups, but in each city, I think it means more, and we all feel connected, and we are a bit of a family. And it's a difficult one because, you know, there's dark forces out there to make life difficult for us. I'm sure we've all seen Kevin's and my volume is. I'll just put my mic up a little bit if that's better. Sorry about that. Anyway, so what you would have seen there was the guards basically saying, well, the park's for everyone, so, you know, you can't hand out pamphlets, which just didn't make any sense. And I got the similar story inside. And then you heard a little bit of Timothy and I playing some music, Free Assange New Zealand song, which is another song actually that we could play, which is quite an original one. And I'm hoping Timothy might arrive some time in the middle of the night to actually play some music. We might even be able to do some music right here into the live stream. I don't know how that would go down on Jitsi. It might be better than Zoom. I don't know. But anyway, so you just saw a whole bunch of actions that were planned around that February date, February 24 for the original trial. And of course, we've got the September trial coming up, and Action for Assange are trying to fundraise to get down to DC and trying to do what they do so well, which is, you know, they have a whole week of intense protests. They go to, you're doing 3 weeks this time, so, but you've got, last time it was like a whole intense week of you know, actions outside media organizations, actions outside the DOJ, actions like marches from the Trump you know, tower, and, you know, so lots of wonderful things. I don't know, it's not Trump Tower, but there's, you know, there was something Trump, maybe White House to DOJ, was it a walk? Anyway, a whole series of events, and so they're trying to muster that again and get some exciting stuff happening. And of course, we all don't know what's going on with COVID. I speak from a very privileged position of, we shut down really hard in New Zealand. It was pretty tough, but we really went full on the shutdown, and so we got rewarded by supposedly getting out earlier. We've had a few ifs and buts, but generally we're all out and about, and it's normal for us. We're disconnected, but I mean, it's very different for everyone, which is why, while we had 62 cities for Candles for Assange last year, which was just incredible, we're in a very difficult situation, and a number of the actions that are listed under Candles for Assange, they're just going to be solo actions. There's someone putting yellow ribbons around trees, or putting balloons up, or giving out cake. For instance, there was a stall in Darwin. I was hoping to hear from Max, who is there with Fortress 1977 from Twitter. And they were running a stall. They might be still running it all day, and I'm hoping to try and connect with them, because they're on the Adelaide Darwin time zone, which is the funny one at the half hours. But anyway, enough of that. Probably as part of the slideshow that you might have seen, or you will see, there is a schedule, and what it is 24-hour clock, all the hours of 24-hour clock across all the time zones horizontally. So you've got New Zealand first, because we see the sunlight first, then you've got Sydney, then you've got Adelaide Darwin line, which is the half-hour one, then you've got your Perth, and then we go all the way to Vienna time zone, London, which is European Central Time, and then we've got London time zone, and then it goes over to Rio, and then Washington DC time, and then Mexico time, Denver time, because I've had to allow for all the cities so that they can all know when everyone else's events is on, and then it's easier to come into things like this from all different countries around the world. Because here in New Zealand, we've done our protests, it's nighttime, and yeah, we're all done here. I think, not me. I'm going to stay up all night if I need to, and keep on going live whenever there is something. So what we were thinking is that we will have a break unless Kat Nima arrives in a nick of time and we can have a conversation with her. But if not, we will have a little break and we will try and come back probably for London, which will be running a vigil all day. And there's a special event happening at 5 p.m. British time. That's UTC +1. But they are literally going to be there in the next 10 minutes or so, from midday right through to 7 or 8 p.m. We're hoping to cut live to either Dave Simpson on the ground there or Ali May 101234 on Twitter. Gosh, that's good memory, isn't it? But she's very special. And so we've got a whole bunch of people we want to cut to. One of the most beautiful sounding ones is Tulsa. It's going to release some balloons at the end of their walk, which is a 3-hour walk starting for Bear Fountain from memory. But it's all on the schedule, which you'll find on Candles for Assange on Facebook and also on Candles for Assange on the thread, which is pinned to my tweet, and it's a very long one. At the very bottom, you will find a new schedule from me, which is hopefully a little bit easier to understand for all those time zones. So no Cat Mima yet, Josh? No. All right, so I think we all need to have a little rest, and we will come back and we will try. I think we missed out on getting it onto Facebook through Unity 4Day, which was how we got so many views. Oh, right, I couldn't see it coming up live. So. Yeah, no, I found yours. Yeah, no, I found yours. Yours is there, but we did it before on Unity 4Day for the April 11th. Yeah, so I think I'm going to get Joe or someone to help me in the morning, and maybe we can start streaming it off onto Facebook on Unity 4J. That was really good. Yeah. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask anyone who is able to, hold a watch party when you next see us come up live, because the schedule is quite hard to figure out when we're coming out live. Right now here in New Zealand, it is 10:47. So 11 o'clock on my schedule here says London has actually started. I mean, we could actually ring them and even go live to them and see what it looks like, but it would be literally the first minute. And I bet you, knowing how organisers are, I'm pretty sure that it's going to be hectic beginning until it settles down a bit. So, all right, I think that's the best thing. We'll have a break and we will see you soon with more videos from around the world, and we'll try and find all those photos that have been coming in with yellow ribbons and yellow balloons and cakes and all those things. So thank you very much, guys. Thanks for listening so far, and tune in again soon.